February 8th, 2026, more than 100 million Americans will watch the Super Bowl. But the most controversial figure on that field won't be a quarterback or a politician. It will be a 31-year-old former grocery store bagger from Puerto Rico, performing in Spanish, who just made Grammy history, and who Donald Trump says should never have been invited to the stage at all. Bad Bunny isn't just an artist, he's become a walking culture war. The first Spanish language artist to win Album of the Year at the Grammys, the first Latin solo headliner at a Super Bowl halftime show, and one of the loudest critics of how the United States treats Puerto Rico and immigrants, now beamed into the biggest TV event in America. So who is Bad Bunny, really? How did a kid from a working class neighborhood end up at the center of US politics, culture, and controversy? And what does his story say about America in 2026? Let's break it down. If you enjoy deep dives into the global forces reshaping United States, from oil markets to pop culture wars, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Today, we're unpacking the rise of Bad Bunny, his past, his Grammys, his Super Bowl, and why this one artist has Washington, MAGA World, and the music industry all arguing about what kind of country the U.S. is becoming.
U.S. President Donald Trump criticized Bad Bunny's performance at the Super Bowl with a post on his own social media platform saying, quote, "The Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense, is an affront to the greatness of America, and doesn't represent our standards of success, creativity, or excellence."
Bad Bunny's real name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. He was born on March 10th, 1994, in Vega Baja, a town on Puerto Rico's northern coast, about 30 miles from San Juan. His father drove trucks. His mother was a school teacher who also taught English. The family wasn't rich, but music was everywhere. Salsa, rock, reggaeton, romantic ballads blaring in the house and on the streets. As a kid, Benito sang in his church choir and started writing his own songs as a young teenager. The nickname Bad Bunny came from a childhood photo of him in a bunny costume, looking angrily into the camera, a soft, funny image that later became attached to aggressive, confrontational music. He studied audio-visual communication at the University of Puerto Rico in Arecibo, learning sound, media, and production, while working as a bagger in a local supermarket. On his breaks, he uploaded tracks to SoundCloud, mixing Latin trap, reggaeton, and emotional, sometimes political lyrics. One of those songs caught the attention of Puerto Rican producer DJ Luyan, who signed him to the label Hear This Music around 2016. Within a few years, that supermarket employee had become one of the most streamed artists on the planet. But Bad Bunny's rise wasn't just another pop success story. He refused to follow the usual crossover script for Latin artists in the US. No switching to English, no toning down the politics, no hiding his Puerto Rican identity to fit American radio. And that's where his clash and connection with the United States really begins.
Bad Bunny's Apple Music halftime show ripped apart by Donald Trump on Truth Social as, quote, one of the worst ever.
By the late 2000s, Bad Bunny was everywhere. Collaborations with Cardi B and Drake, chart-topping Spanish-language hits, and stadium tours. But the real shock for the US industry came in the early 2000s. His 2022 album, Un Verano Sin Ti, wasn't in English, wasn't built for American pop radio, and still became the world's best-performing album of 2022, according to IFPI, the global recording industry body. At the Grammys, he started stacking wins. Best Latin Pop or Urban Album for YHLQMDLG. Best Música Urbana Album for El Último Tour del Mundo. And again, Best Música Urbana Album for Un Verano Sin Ti in 2023. By 2023, he already had 3 Grammys, all for Spanish language albums, a signal that the center of gravity in pop culture was shifting, whether the American establishment wanted to admit it or not. But Grammys weren't the only stages he was about to shake up. In 2020, he got a sneak preview of the biggest one in American sports. At Super Bowl 55 in Miami in 2020, the headliners were Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. But mid-show, the the cameras cut to a surprise guest, Bad Bunny, in silver, trading lines in Spanish with Shakira on I Like It, Chantaje, and Calladita. The show was intentionally Latin, Spanish lyrics, Latin dancers, and subtle political imagery, including children in illuminated cage-like structures, widely read as a reference to Trump-era immigration policies. U.S. media described it as jaw-dropping, explosive, and a celebration of Latin identity on the kind of mainstream U.S. stage that had almost never given full control to Spanish-speaking artists before. For millions of Americans, this was the first time they really saw Bad Bunny. For many in Washington and in MAGA media, it was their first hint that the culture in their NFL was changing under their feet. To understand why his Super Bowl headlining gig is so politically charged in 2026, you have to understand Bad Bunny's political track record. In 2019, Puerto Rico was rocked by mass protests after nearly 900 pages of leaked messages revealed then-Governor Ricardo Rosselló making sexist and homophobic remarks and even joking about Hurricane Maria victims. Bad Bunny stopped his European tour, flew home, and joined the protest in the streets. He also teamed up with Residente and Ile on Afilando los Cuchillos, Sharpening the Knives, a blistering protest song directly calling for Rosselló's resignation. The track became an anthem of the movement, blasting over crowds as demonstrators demanded the governor step down. This wasn't just political vibes, it was specific, anti-corruption, anti-homophobia, and furious about how the island, a U.S. territory whose residents are U.S. citizens, had been treated before and after Hurricane Maria. His criticism extended to Washington. After the Trump administration's widely criticized response to Hurricane Maria, Bad Bunny wore a shirt at a benefit concert that read, "Eres tuitero o presidente?" Are you a tweeter or a president? Directly mocking Trump's online bluster and lack of effective aid. As Trump escalated immigration raids and empowered ICE, Bad Bunny became increasingly vocal about what that meant for his fans. In a 2025 interview, he said he and his team were genuinely worried ICE could be waiting outside his U.S. concerts, one of the reasons his massive 2025 to 26 world tour skipped the United States entirely. Instead, his Debí Tirar Más Fotos world tour sold out stadiums across Latin America, Europe, Japan, and Australia, breaking ticket sale records from Mexico City to Madrid, all while no U.S. city got a date.
When Puerto Rican-born singer Bad Bunny announced his world tour this year, fans were hyped until they realized he's skipping the United States entirely.
In late 2024 and early 2025, after a comedian at a Trump rally made an offensive joke about Puerto Rico.
These Latinos, they love making babies too, just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Bad Bunny publicly blasted the remark and went on the New York Times Popcast to explain why it wasn't just a joke, when the punchline is an island still recovering from real disaster.
Y, como te digo, fue como que el momento, la molestia, because, yeah, I know he was a comedian, blah, 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 but that wasn't a stand-up comedy show. No. It was supposed to be a political rally, something.
Yeah. Around that period, he openly supported Democrat Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, framing it as a response to Trump's treatment of Puerto Ricans and immigrants. So by the time the NFL picked him to headline the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show, this wasn't just about music. It was about putting a high-profile Trump critic, a Spanish-speaking, pro-immigrant, anti-colonial Puerto Rican, at the center of America's favorite TV event.
He promised us an energetic dance party, and he delivered. Global music superstar Bad Bunny gave us a halftime show that many people are now calling one of the best in Super Bowl history.
In January 2025, Bad Bunny released his 6th solo studio album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, I Should Have Taken More Pictures. The record doubles down on what makes him politically radioactive in some US circles and beloved in others. The album is entirely in Spanish and laced with commentary about Puerto Rico's colonial status and gentrification. One standout track, Lo que le pasó a Hawaii, is a somber, Guido-driven song that condemns how outside investors and U.S. policy are transforming the island, pricing out locals and turning homeland into someone else's playground. Critics describe the project as a love letter to Puerto Rico and a document of resistance. It powered a historic 31-show residency in San Juan, followed by the all-stadium world tour that skipped the U.S. and still shattered records, selling over 2.6 million tickets in a week and breaking box office marks from Mexico to Spain. Award shows had no choice but to catch up. At the 2025 Latin Grammys, Debí Tirar Más Fotos earned 12 nominations and finally gave Bad Bunny his first ever win for Album of the Year at the Latin Grammys.
Bad Bunny!
A major category he'd been snubbed for, despite dominating Latin music for years.
This is really easy. Humble is easy because I just made this album with love and passion.
Then came February 1st, 2026. At the 68th Grammy Awards in Los Angeles, Debí Tirar Más Fotos won Album of the Year, the first fully Spanish-language album ever to capture the Grammy's biggest prize. He beat out heavyweight English-language projects and, in his acceptance speech, dedicated the award to Puerto Rico, to immigrants who had to leave home for their dreams, and to Latinos around the world. He told the crowd, "There's nothing we can't do," and thanked the artists who came before him who should have been standing on that stage years earlier. With that one win, Bad Bunny became the first Spanish-language artist to win Album of the Year, a 4-time Grammy winner, adding to his 3 earlier Grammys for Y a lo que me delogué, El Último Tour del Mundo, and Un Verano Sin Ti. And, symbolically, proof that you no longer need to sing in English to dominate American music's highest institutions. But the Grammys are watched by music fans. The Super Bowl is watched by everyone. When the NFL announced Bad Bunny as the headliner for Super Bowl 60 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, home of the San Francisco 49ers, the backlash from parts of the American right was immediate. Donald Trump called the decision crazy and absolutely ridiculous and claimed he had never heard of Bad Bunny, despite the fact that Bad Bunny had already performed at a previous Super Bowl halftime in 2020. House Speaker Mike Johnson said it sounds like a terrible decision and said he'd rather see Lee Greenwood, the singer of God Bless the USA. In other words, this wasn't really about whether Bad Bunny could perform. It was about who gets to represent America on its biggest stage and whether Spanish language, pro-immigrant, pro-Puerto Rico voices are accepted as part of that national image. Bad Bunny's response? Hosting Saturday Night Live's season premiere, he joked about performing the Super Bowl in Spanish and told the audience, partly in Spanish, that if they didn't understand him, they had a few months to learn.
If you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
Turning the criticism into a flex about the reality of a bilingual, multicultural United States. Meanwhile, media coverage has framed his halftime show as a flashpoint, the first time a Spanish-speaking Latin artist headlined solo at a moment when immigration and the status of Puerto Rico are hot political issues in Washington. From one angle, it's pure entertainment, reggaeton beats, dancers, fireworks. From another, it's a U.S. territory's most famous son, a man who helped push out his own governor and who routinely criticizes U.S. policy, standing on the 50-yard line of America's most watched spectacle. So what does Bad Bunny's story tell us about the United States right now? First, it shows that U.S. cultural power is no longer a one-way export. An artist from a U.S. territory, singing only in Spanish, can dominate American charts, win its top Grammy, and headline its top sporting event without changing his language or sanding down his politics. Second, it exposes the contradiction in how the U.S. treats Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, but their island is treated as an afterthought in disaster response, infrastructure, and political representation, a reality that Bad Bunny calls out in songs, speeches, and symbolism. Third, it highlights how immigration and identity fights are no longer just about policies and laws. They're about who is visible on screen. Trump's attacks and the right-wing outrage about a Spanish-language halftime show are less about football and more about who gets to define American. And finally, it shows the strategic power of culture and politics. Bad Bunny doesn't run for office. He doesn't lead a party, but his protest songs helped fuel a movement that forced a governor to resign. His world tour routing, bypassing the U.S., was itself a political statement about ICE and anti-immigrant fear. His Grammys and Super Bowl aren't just career milestones. They are battlegrounds over what America looks and sounds like in the 21st century. From church choir singer in Vega Baja to Grammy history maker and Super Bowl headliner, Bad Bunny's journey is more than a music story. It's the story of a United States that can no longer pretend Spanish is foreign, that Puerto Rico is somewhere else, or that culture can be separated from politics. When he steps onto that Super Bowl stage, or when you see clips of it afterward, it won't just be a concert. It will be a snapshot of where America is in 2026. Divided, changing, but undeniably more Latin, more bilingual, and more global than its loudest critics like to admit. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more deep dives into how culture, politics, and geopolitics collide, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Is Bad Bunny's rise a sign of a more inclusive America or a new front in the culture wars? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.